And let me quickly bring in Adit Kothari as well. Adit Kothari is a founding member of the Indic Society. Adit Kothari, there were all sorts of heated exchanges, there were all sorts of narratives that were put forth. But, do you think that with this particular conviction, at least some of the false narratives that were put forth will now be set to rest?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Leicester riots, I think, yes, you're quite right. We've seen Margaret Freeman, who was also indicted, a couple of weeks ago. And now following that, we have Anjem Choudary also now being thrown away into a dark pit, hopefully from where there is absolutely no return. But it poses a larger question. I think Mr. Chilani made a very valuable point as to why is the UK essentially put themselves into this situation? Why have we created so many Frankensteins, hoping that, we can pander to them and they become a sort of a weapon for the state where we can use them at our whims and fancies against other nations. He made the case of Rabindra Matre, who was brutally executed in 1984, and following which, even last year, we've had Khalistani extremists, vandalizing the Indian High Commission, which is absolutely under any UN law that should have been taken up very strongly by the government, which wasn't the case. So there is some room that the UK government has shown where they are willing to tolerate extremists or individuals harboring very sort of extremist ideologies, who want to use democracy, who want to use the values of democracy against democracy. However, I think this sentencing in itself is quite significant because it somewhere disrupts the radicalizer at a root level rather than looking at an organizational level, something which I think India did very well with its PFI and the National Democratic Front. So what happens is these organizations keep changing their names from time and time again, and what happens is the perpetrators or the people who actually radicalize young youth get away scot-free, because people like Anjem Choudary, who's a trained solicitor, he knows all the loopholes of the trade. He knows the law at the back of the hand, which is why he's able to preempt situations when the government's coming for the organization. So they are able to change the name of the organization itself and then masquerade around a different organization and then operate absolutely freely. So I think this is where this points towards a tactical change, which the three governments working across seamlessly, borderlessly in this information age have been able to do really
Very
well.
quickly, Brahma Chalani, are there any lessons for India in this?
Well, a couple of lessons. First is that we need to stop politicizing the global war on terrorism. The global war on terrorism stands derailed largely because it's been politicized. We need to bring that to an end so that a concerted and sustained international onslaught on the perverted ideology of radical Islam can begin. After all, the only way to defeat an enemy driven by a pernicious ideology is to discredit that ideology. And we haven't begun that effort. We haven't made that attempt to discredit the Islamist ideology. Even if we kill the number of terrorists or eliminate a number of groups, the fact is, as long as this ideology remains credible in the eyes of its adherents, that ideology has not been discredited widely, then we will continue to face this problem. So I think we need to, it's not just India, it's a global issue. We need to focus on discrediting this ideology. After all, let's not forget that the West won the Cold War, not so much by military means as by spreading the ideas of freedom and capitalism that helped suck the lifeblood out of communism's international appeal, thereby making it incapable of meeting the widespread popular yearning for a better, more open life in the world. That was an aspiration of people across the world. And it was an ideological victory, not a military victory.
All right.
So similarly, I think on the global war on terror, we need to focus on the ideology.
Well, some very interesting lessons there, certainly, and very interesting thoughts as well.